Hello, how are we doing today, folks? So it's Wednesday, Dr. Barnes. How do you think we're doing? It's like I relate to that. It is Wednesday, but it's a pretty good Wednesday. I think the sun is shining, the grass is green, and so that's all we really need. So before we get started on NetSuite for today, because we're going to do NetSuite and some homework, I did get a list from Meet the Firms, which came a lot quicker than I usually expect. Usually it takes a few weeks, but our new admin is just right on top of things. So my request for you all, if you attended Meet the Firms, please go on to Brightspace and check your grade to see that I put it in there. It always happens a few times that I get students who attended Meet the Firms but did not get listed as attending. So please make sure that I gave you 5 points for that and you got that out. Just as a reminder, if you did not attend Meet the Firms, that does not mean that you're out of luck. There's still the Career Expo, which is coming up, I think 2 weeks from tomorrow on the 25th. Is that math correct? That does math out. Okay. So yeah, 2 weeks from tomorrow on the 25th over at the Student Union. It's a good opportunity. You will need to inform me that you attended that because there's not going to be a list, but that's the other extra credit opportunity. So then again, just as a reminder, if you attended Meet the Firms and still want to attend the career fair, I encourage you to do so. You will not get additional extra credit for doing so. I will just say good work, and I'll remember you, and I'll put you in my biography if I ever write one. So, but yeah, that's what's coming up. All right, so we got some NetSuite stuff to talk about today. So let's go ahead and get logged in. Someday I'm going to be teaching this class, and I'm going to completely forget my password, or I'm going to try to log in and it's going to say forgot the password, and I'm going to get completely locked out, and then I'm just going to be completely frozen here. So I'm not looking forward to that day because I'm going to realize that I'm just too old to teach in that situation. We're not there yet. Actually, my go-to for when I determine if I'm too old to teach is the TV show The Office. Is anybody in this room familiar with The Office? Okay. The moment that I ask that question and nobody raises their hand, I'm like, I'm done. All right. I am completely out of contact with the rest of every generation. All right. I'm okay with nobody knowing the facts of life, but The Office, that's got to be the landmark. All right. So quick note here. I just want to make a comment. Um, if you get this message, great. If you don't worry about it. They are going to be doing an update to NetSuite here in the next few weeks. I will try to make sure that I do the updates to our procedures in line. I just want to caution you that if you see me look at flummoxed or confused, it's happened in the past that they've made an update and I've prepared for the class in advance, and then all of a sudden something that I prepared for was not correct. So this should not be an issue. You can go and just click in the box and continue when we're going to go back into NetSuite. But I guess not even, they're doing it a little bit later this week, so on the 15th. So we'll see what happens if anything's changed. It should not actually change what we're going to be working on moving forward. So remember, for our walkthrough for part one, we were just setting up NetSuite, and you should at this point have your name up here as well as your company name. You should be logged in as an administrator. Is everybody on that line right now got their name up there and got their company name listed and your administrator? If those three things are not present, then please let me know. Okay. I'm going to assume that's the case for everyone because that's going to be critical for everything we're doing moving forward. Now we're going to start out at a very, very slow speed. Today we're going to be booking some items and creating some basic reports. Please take diligent notes as we're going through this because on next Wednesday, you're going to have an in-class assignment where you're going to basically replicate what we're doing today. And when I say replicate, what I mean is that you're going to be doing the same tasks just for different information. So you're going to be doing journal entries, you're going to be creating reports, but it's going to be a little bit more dynamic and you're going to have to use the material talked about today. So again, please make sure you make notes on this because we will be repeating this activity. We're going to do another one at the end of the semester very similar to this, or very similar to that replication activity. This is just kind of a reinforcement of what we're learning today. So the very first thing we want to do today, this is something that you should not need to replicate if you do this correctly the first time, but we will need to set up our accounting periods. Now, an interesting story, when we first started using NetSuite here at Truman State, this was back in 2018, the previous AIS instructor, like not even the one before me, but the one before that instructor, had set up NetSuites to be able to work through those transactions. And they had actually set that up on an instance that was set up for 2016. So several years already backed up. And they did not update the years until very recently. And the years are now updated, I believe, to 2023. But here we are in the future in 2025. We need to be operating in the period that we're going to be functioning. So we're going to have to set those up. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to setup, and remember when you highlight, it will do the drop down. We're going to go to accounting, and then we're going to go all the way down over here to manage accounting periods. And once you reach that, you can click on it. I'm going to leave the line so everybody can follow. So setup, accounting, manage accounting periods. Just as a reminder, if we're doing something in class and I give you a pathway, you may want to make note of that pathway. One, because it will help you if you need to know how to redo this or do it for a future assignment. Two, let me ask a question on the exam about it. There are two multiple choice questions on the next exam about NetSuite, so you want to make sure that you have at least a working knowledge. I try not to get too technical, at least to make sure it's conceptual, but having the detailed notes about what paths we're following would be helpful for you. So we're going to go to manage accounting periods. And you will notice we are all set up for the fiscal year 2023, but we're not in fiscal year 2023, we're in fiscal year 2025. So you want to guess what we're going to do? We're going to set up a full year. So click on that blue button right in the top left-hand corner. And we do not need to do anything other than click on save, but let's just go ahead and take a look and see what it says. It's going to use a standard fiscal calendar year, which is basically January 1st to December 31st. We're going to be in year 2025, which is our current period. And it's going to basically give us calendar months and ending year period information, which looks all great. So go ahead and click on save. Once you do that, what you're going to notice is a new year has been added to our calendar. We've got fiscal year 2025, which has been expanded out. Got our quarters and our months and all left up. Does anybody have a problem with what we've currently got right now, though? Does anybody just have is like OCD like me and just like, okay, I'm not happy with this? So we just jumped from 2023 to 2025. We skipped an entire year. Now, depending on how well your 2024 went, you may really want to skip 2024. But we can't do that from a business perspective. So let's go up and set up another year. And you can guess we're going to go down here and change this to 2024. And save that. Now, it's unlikely that we're going to have any transactions that are going to affect 2024, but for posterity, I wanted to make sure that we had all of our years in a series moving forward. And yes, you can guess that when we work through this in future years that I'm going to have students set up 2026, 2025, 2024. I don't think it was really that onerous a task for anybody. Basically, I had you click on something and then click save, and then I had you click on something, change one digit and click save. So I know, a lot of work, yeah. So, all right. So we're good from here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start the beginning of process of journal entries. Now I want to make a note of this because this is really important. What we're doing in this particular activity is we're going to be creating manual journal entries. So this is kind of a bypass for traditional journal entry systems. Most systems create automated journal entries based on transactions. So if you run through a normal revenue or a purchasing transaction, you don't directly create the journal entry. The system creates one for you based on your activity. That's considered to be an automated journal entry, and we can see the effects of that once we actually get to the revenue and purchasing processes later on, which will be the second part of this our NetSuite actions, our activities, NetSuite activities. However, we do have the ability to directly create journal entries in the system if we want to, which is what we're going to do today. We're going to create journal entries and post them directly to NetSuite. I say post, we're actually going to create them. We're not going to directly post them. So we'll see what the difference between that means here in just a second. The very first thing I want to do is I want to create a new account. So let's go ahead and let's go to setup again. We're going to go to accounting. And then we're going to go to chart of accounts. Now you can go and click on that because it's going to take some time. I'm going to leave the direction up. How many people have heard the term chart of accounts before? Okay, so this is something that gets bandied about and sometime in financial accounting. So let's go ahead and talk about what chart of accounts is. Now, remember when you made your journal entries back in 220 and 221, you just used the account name? In a computerized system, that is generally not sufficient for very obvious reasons. How many different categories of accounts receivable do you think we have? How many different categories of cash do you think we have? It's usually more than one. So the way that a computerized accounting system works is it doesn't actually just use a single account. It will have multiple accounts in an area, but they all need to have unique identifiers. We can use different names, but it's more consistent to use numbers. And so a chart of accounts provides a numeric assignment to our accounts, which we'll take a look at shortly. So I'm going to click on chart of accounts. And you will kind of see here that we've got a list of the items that are in our accounts, which is fine. We're going to go ahead and create a new account to see how this works. So let's go ahead and click on new. Now, the way that a normal chart of accounts works is that information is going to be aggregated within certain areas. As we're going to see, there is a theme, there's a pattern to our chart of accounts here when we look at the sub accounts. Basically, anything that's in the 1,000 range is going to be considered to be our asset accounts. 2,000s would be liabilities, 3,000s would be equity, 4,000s revenue, so on and so forth. At least I think that's a pattern. I think it may be a little bit different because I think 6,000s the expenses. But let's go ahead and we're going to type in the number 1522. So just based on what I told you right now, what is this most likely account going to be? What type of account is it going to be? This is going to be an asset account. In fact, we're going to call this account automobiles. Now, it's important that you set this up right now because you will be using this account directly next week. You'll actually be buying an automobile. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, is that you will need to have this account set up correctly. Now, we can make this as a standalone account, or we can usually do it as a sub account. If I were to say automobiles, is that usually a line item that you see in most balance sheets for organizations? No, it's probably going to be a subset of like some sort of fixed asset account. So let's go ahead and make this a sub account. Now, you will notice when I click on this down arrow that it defaults out to the 6,000s, which you can see are all expenses. We do not want this in the 6,000s. In fact, we want to keep this in the 1520s. So let's type in 1520. And we're going to put this in property, plant, and equipment, machinery, and equipment. We could. It's probably more appropriate. I just chose 1520. If you want to choose vehicles, that's fine, but I think it's probably, because of the numbering system, I wanted to put in there. All right, and you'll notice it defaulted to fixed asset as type, which is where you want to be, okay? So fixed asset is where it's appropriate. Now, we did need to make a couple of items changes, or one specific one. Remember last week, or not last week, 2 weeks ago. Man, it's been a long time. 2 weeks ago, we set up our company. Where's our company headquartered? San Francisco, okay? And specifically, we're going to be operating out of the US West subsidiary. So let's go ahead and set up our subsidiary over here as United States West. So if we fail to set up out of United States West, this could be problematic because this is where all of our business is going to be conducted. Some transactions will not be able to be conducted out of other subsidiaries because we don't have set them up correctly. So if I tell you to change a subsidiary, it's actually really important. You may actually find that you can't conduct a transaction if they're not all set up in the same subsidiary. All right, so let's just go ahead and review. 1522, automobiles, sub-account of 1520, fixed asset, and subsidiary is parent company, United States West. So once you have that all set up, go ahead and click on save. So now we have a new account that we can create transactions out of. Now, it's not important that we do that today because we're not going to create transactions out of that specific account. But if you did not create that account today, next week when you buy your vehicle, you're not going to be able to set it up in that particular account. You're going to have to use a different one or go through the process of setting up the account. Which, by the way, considering I'm going to be grading specifically on setting up and buying from that account, it's probably important that you have that account set up. So that's going to be worth noting. All right. So we probably could go through this. Let's see. Let's see if we can find our account. So it's 1520. We scroll down a little bit. Or 1522. Yeah, 1522. And you'll notice it's an offset of machinery equipment down here as automobiles. And like Bethany said, it probably should be in vehicles, but not just me being me. I go against the grain, folks. I go against the tide. Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and we're going to create a journal entry. So let's go now over to transactions. Going to go financial. Going to go to make journal entries. Now, again, I want to reiterate what I just said. This is not the standard process for journal entries. Most of your journal entries that you will see in a system will be automatically generated by the accounting information system. And we'll see examples of how that works in a few weeks when we start working through the revenue and purchasing processes. This is if we wanted to create our own standalone journal entry. It'll look very similar to how we would create journal entries by hand, but this is generally not what a computer system is used for. This is kind of a unique instance where we're just wanting to see how this relates to what we already know. So we're going to click on Make Journal Entries. Going to take a second for it to come up. Now, as the screen comes up, one thing you're going to notice is that it's going to give us a format to where we can actually create a journal entry. One of the things that we can't do, and this is a relatively new change to NetSuite, is we cannot enter our own journal entry ID number. Now, we've talked about natures of controls, and we said controls are response to risk. Do we think that the system creating a journal entry ID number is a control for us? Yes, because if we had the ability to create our own journal entry IDs, there's a number of problems, not even nefarious problems, not somebody trying to create fraud, but let's say I wanted to use journal entry number 1, and then somebody else wanted to use journal entry number 1. We'd have a lot of journal entries as number 1. So the system creating that for us avoids the problem of duplicating journal entry numbers. There's also another reason, which is a little bit more of a control reason. We've talked a little bit about sequential processing. Remember I asked about checks, and I said, does anybody still use a checkbook? And we looked at the check numbers so we can see if there's gaps in sequence. The system doing this processing for us allows us to check sequential entry. And if we have a sequential series of entries, we can check for gaps in those entries for problems. Usually that's going to be a deleted journal entry, but otherwise we can investigate and find out, oh, this is a journal entry that was got removed because somebody's trying to hide it and commit fraud. So there's reasons why we have this particular entry for the journal entry being automated. For all of our documents that we're going to create, there's going to be an automatic process that creates those document numbers for us. Now, can that process be overridden? The answer is yes. We are not going to do so in this class because there's a reason why this control is in place. But that's a very, very subtle distinction to note. We added a journal entry. So we've got our date set up here. It should be today's date. So everybody got today's date on here? All right, so subsidiary, we do have to make a change here, and this is going to become very, very common. We're going to set up in United States West. Now, there's a couple of things that are going to happen when you click on United States West. First of all, it's going to set up the subsidiary, but it's going to pause for a second, and then it's going to fill some numbers in for us. It's going to fill in the US dollar as currency. It's going to set the posting period for this current month. So hopefully that's set up for us. Again, really important that you set a subsidiary because not only will this tell us where the transaction is going to track to, but it also sets up our currency and posting period, which we'd otherwise have to do manually. All right, let's go ahead. So currency, exchange rate, posting period should also all populate. So exchange rate was already listed, but that's fine. Let's go ahead and create a journal entry. Now, this is a remedial question, I know, but let's go ahead and make sure. What are the two key components to a journal entry? A debit and a credit. So we need to create both. We're going to go ahead and create a transaction. Let's just go ahead and say that we're going to use petty cash to buy gasoline for the car. And we're just going to categorize this gasoline as a miscellaneous expense because it gets an expense when used. So see where it says 6,081 when you click on this? Go ahead and click on that, or you can just type in 6081 if you want to do that. We're just going to post a miscellaneous expense. Now, there's a few ways that we can get over to the debit. You can go ahead and put the account in, and then you can tab over. We don't need to put anything else in right now. And we're going to type in the number 200. Now, I do want to make a note of this. We can tab over a little bit further, and we can put a memo in here. A memo is just a descriptor for a line item or a journal entry that explains the nature for the journal entry. We're not going to put anything in today, though you could certainly do that if you wanted to. If you just wanted to say fuel expense, that would be fine. That would probably be very appropriate. Why am I wasting your time if we're not going to enter something? Because it's entirely likely, when I say entirely likely, 100% certain, that you will have to enter a memo entry for your journal entries for next week. So where do those memo entries go in? They're going to go in right here. Now, for posterity, what I would encourage you to do is, technically speaking, since this is an entangled entry, since all parts are going to be entered together, you only need to enter for one memo line item. When you do this next week, I would encourage you to enter on all lines for the memo when you're instructed to do that. Okay, so when I say, please make sure you add this in your memo line, do it for both the debit and the credit for that particular journal entry. All right, so we have a debit. Let's go ahead and add our credit. So click on add. And let's go ahead and put this in petty cash, 1040. And one of the neat things is NetSuite has already recognized that you've got a debit. So guess what happens when you tab over to credit? It autofills for you. Now, this is very convenient, but it's also a little bit of a trap. Has anybody ever written a journal entry that has more than one debit or more than one credit? Yeah, happens quite a bit, and it will happen to us in this particular course. You have to be careful because of that autofill. If you don't want to have exactly, like say, for example, we were crediting multiple accounts, we had multiple cash accounts, we'd have to manually make that change. So be careful when you're doing that. It's very convenient if you know what the exact number is, but it can be a little bit of a trap to fall into. Also, question comes up all the time. Could we enter the credit first? Certainly, okay? This is not subject to your having to enter it in a certain sequence back in 221. All that the NetSuite cares about is that both parts of the entry are included. If the journal entry is out of balance, it will not post or not create the journal entry. It will basically say there's an error, we have to fix the problem, but for the most part, we're good here. So let's go ahead and click on save. And then we wait a little bit while journal entries or the NetSuite posts. I need to make a list of jokes that I can use in the intervening space because this always takes so long and just kind of feels like I'm staring at you and you're staring at me and it's just awkward. All right. Confirmation, transaction successfully saved. It says approved for posting. What does that mean? Has anybody ever heard that term before? So we need to talk about this because this is an important check, an important control that the NetSuite has for us. So let's go ahead and look at something real quick. I want you to go to transactions. We're going to basically go to the same place we went to. We're going to go to transactions, financial, make journal entries. But before you click on make journal entries, scroll over to the right and click on list. Okay, so we're going to click on the list of journal entries. Now we know we've got a lot of journal entries here that have the status of approved for posting, which is going to include all our journal entry, which should be down at the bottom, or maybe not down at the bottom. So hold on. Yeah, down at the bottom. Yeah, scroll all the way to the bottom. In most ERP systems, when you create a journal entry, it does not automatically flow upward. And this is true for manual journal entries, by the way. I want to make that clear. It does not flow upward immediately to the financial statements. There are two separate steps. There's going to be a creation step and a posting step. Now, why do you think that exists? The answer is that if we want to make sure that there's a review step for the journal entry to make sure it's a valid item. So we do not want this immediately flowing to the financial statements because if it gets the financial statements, our only recourse in this particular situation is to create a reversing entry. You guys remember reversing entries from 220 and 221? Boy, those are a pain. That's when you're debiting revenues and crediting expenses, and that kind of craziness should never exist in any human. Like Pacquioli would be rolling over in his grave, okay? Would be rolling over his grave if he heard about that. Anyway, so we're at the creation stage. We've created a journal entry. What does that mean? It means that if we did not like this journal entry, we could still delete it. Now, I'm going to say this multiple times, but I'm going to say this ahead of time. And if you're not paying close attention, you may want to pay close attention here. Do not delete this journal entry, okay? I can't emphasize that enough. I'm going to show you where we go to delete the journal entry. Do not click on delete. If you click on delete, I will be very disappointed in you as a human being, okay? As me as a human being, not as you as a human being, all right? So let's go ahead and go to edit. Now you will notice that our sequence has some gaps in it. The reason that we only have certain items in here is because some of these journal entries have been created and have been posted, which means that they're no longer available to edit. Our item here has not been posted. So if we wanted to, we could eliminate this journal entry. Right now, it's just sitting in the system saying, I'm waiting to be posted to the financial system statements, waiting to go to the system itself. So if I come here as a reviewer, I say, why on earth are they charging expenses for cash? They're supposed to pay for their own expenses and then charge it to the card. Okay. We shouldn't be actually having this hit the system. So I could be coming in and say, I don't like this. I want to delete this. So again, I'm going to show you where to highlight. Do not click on delete. But if we're going to highlight actions, we could actually go here and delete this transaction. What would this do? This would eliminate the created journal entry, and it never hits the system whatsoever. We don't have to post a reversing entry whatsoever. It's just an interesting check to make sure that transactions that are created via manual journal entry are legitimate. All right, so we don't want to delete that because that would defeat the purpose since we're about to create a report based on this journal entry. So now let's go ahead and create a report. So highlight over reports. We're going to go down to financial and then transaction detail. You can go ahead and click on it when you get there. I'm just going to make sure we highlight this so people know where we're going. Reports, financial, transaction detail. All right, this is not now a list of transactions in the system. This includes journal entries, but is not limited to those because we can have internal transfers that do not actually hit financial statements. This actually records anything that's a transaction posted within the system or created within the system. What we want to do is we want to create a report for the journal entry we just had so we can go show this off and say, look, I created a journal entry. That's literally what you're going to do. You're going to post this to, you're going to show me a report in a Brightspace saying, look at this journal entry I created, Dr. Barnes. I only had a little bit of help. And by event, I walked through it step by step with you, which I'm going to say kudos, 5 points. All right. Assuming that you do that. But we need to know how to do this. So let's go ahead and go down here to this button called customize. And as you can probably guess, it's going to create a customized transaction detail report. We're going to actually call this customized transaction detail. Now, there's a few different options here that we can use. We can actually edit the report. The report looks with the columns in here. We're not going to do that. These columns are all fine. We can sort the information as well as create some other more options. But where you need to go, and this, by the way, this is an important step because if you fail to do this, you will not be able to figure out what I'm about to do, okay? So this is one of those ones I pause and say, make sure you do this. Click on filters because we need to create a report filter. Now, did anybody catch what our journal entry number was? Did anybody see what we saw with the sequence that was created by the system? 440, okay? So we've got a journal entry called 440. Within the custom transaction detail report, it actually assigns a document number to any transactions within the system. We need to find journal entry 440. The easiest way to do this is to add a filter using this transaction filter button. So click on the plus sign, and I want you to scroll down to where it says document number. Now, let me know if you have a problem, if you run into any problems here. Did somebody say there's 2 document numbers? Ooh, that's a little bit of a quandary. So let's go ahead and take a look. If you look down here, whenever we highlight one of these, it actually tells us what the document number fields are. And there's 2 exactly called document number. One of these is correct. One of these will leave you weeping, at least until you ask for help and I say, yeah, use the wrong document number. So let's look at what the first one says. It says it's a custom field created for your account. Contact your administrator for details. By the way, who's the administrator? You are, okay? So you have to contact yourself, which is really kind of problematic. Did we create a custom field for our document number? We did not. It was assigned by NetSuite for us. So this is probably not the one that we want. Let's go down to the second document number. Transaction number is a number that's automatically assigned or entered in each new transaction record. Does that sound like what happened? So you have to click on the second document number. If you click on the first one, it will not recognize. All right, when we do that, you will notice that a new filter line was added down here. We've already got a couple of filters listed. It's got a filter for this month. It's actually got a filter for the parent company consolidated, which is fine because it will actually pick up everything that's within every company, including US West. So let's go ahead and create a filter for our journal entry. Remember, our journal entry is formatted JE440. So we want to make sure our filter is equal to that particular value. And then click on done. All right. That should pick up our journal entry, but let's preview and figure it out. I was a little bit worried there for a second, didn't automatically come up. Should have had your journal entry come up. Should look just like this. Should look just like this. Now let's return to customization because I do want to do one thing that's going to help you for next week. It is not necessary that we have to set items equal to the journal entry filter. So let's say I want to set between, okay? And I want to say between JE440 from, and then to JE 440. And I know what you're saying. It says that really seems like a redundant step, Dr. Bart. It's exactly what we did. There might be a reason why I showed you the between filter. Okay. So you actually have different options in how you can filter this information. Is it relevant here? No. Okay. But is it important? Absolutely. Let's go ahead and click on preview again. So we've got a transaction detail report for our single journal entry. So we should be very proud because we've got a report. Remember what I said, that this is your deliverable for today? You're going to have to actually show me you created this report. Now, this is a really important statement for the rest of the course. You're going to get sick of me saying this, by the way. Every single deliverable, aside from the ones that I tell you that need to be delivered in a different format, should be delivered in PDF form. Okay. So last week I didn't tell you PDF. I said you could upload a JPEG, you could upload a Word file. That was fine. Moving forward, we're going to upload everything in PDF. There's a reason for this. PDF is easily readable by Brightspace, and I want my GTRA to be able to open the file and say good. If you save it in the native NetSuite formats for some of the files, Brightspace will not be able to read it. And guess what happens to your grade when Brightspace can't open a file? Your grade goes down, okay? So this is really important. Everything moving forward should be in PDF. The good news is this is really easy to put in PDF. Because you look down here, we've got export PDF with the Adobe Acrobat symbol. So go ahead and click on that. And it looks like it creates a custom transaction detail report. Should look just like this. Well, not exactly like this. If you upload it, it says Team Clamps Cards and Games. I'm going to call shenanigans. You stole my name. You stole my company name. But other than that, it should look just like that. Sometimes people have said these have been transposed, the operating expense on the bottom, the cash on top. That's fine. I don't particularly care about the sequence. All I care about the details. So once you have this file, this is your upload to Brightspace, and that finishes the assignment for today. Now, before you upload to Brightspace, let's do one quick thing, okay? I want to do one last thing in NetSuite. So you've got your file. Let's go ahead and return to customization real quick. And what I'd like for you to do when you're back on this customization screen, I'd like for you to click on Save. Now, this is not necessarily because we're going to use this report filter again, but this is just a best practice whenever you're using analysis like this. This saves a template. So say, for example, you wanted to run this report every single month, but you didn't want to go through the hassle of typing in, all right, I'm going to type in the filter every single time. You just want to actually have a filter automatically set up. This would set up the filter automatically for you. It saves the template format for you. That's basically all that we did in that situation, is we saved the report template. All right, everybody good? Now you can upload to Brightspace. You can take your file and upload to Brightspace because we are done with our NetSuite task for today.
Do you want us to put our name in the custom transaction detail?
You don't need to, because it will upload under your company name, and it will also upload under your name on Brightspace. Yeah. All right. So before we finish, we've got some things to talk about. We got to go through some homework real quick, and hopefully you didn't find the homework today too rough. I think this is an easier homework assignment than some of the ones that we've done in the past. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this. Advantages of relational data models generally include what? So I'm going to start with D and go backwards for no reason in particular. Are they more efficient? Not really. More efficient would use less information. Are they easy to implement? Generally, they're challenging to implement because they have a lot more components and moving parts. Are they low cost? Well, not low cost in general. Maybe low cost over the long run, but the upfront implementation costs are pretty high. Do they reduce information redundancy? Yes, remember we talked about conventional processing systems and how their information inputs were always redundant. There's a reason why we have relational databases, because they get rid of that redundancy for the most part. There's still some repetition of data, but not that much, So that's the point. A class in a relational database is most model defined as what? So remember, we had those 4 items that we called classes. 3 of those were entities. What are our 3 entities again? Resources, events, and agents. Okay, resource, events, and agents. REA, those are our UML diagram items. We also had that 4th one that's not, it is a class, but not an entity. What do we call that? Conceptual structure. So which of these best describes what we just talked about? How about a person, place, thing, transaction, or event about which information is stored? Does that sound correct? Yep, C is our answer. Moving all the way down to number 12. Which of the following is a valid primary key for a cash receipt table? Now, it's unlikely that I will ask you a question this easy, but I do think it's important to get the basics down for how we actually identify primary keys and foreign keys. If we're talking about cash receipt table, I think it's probably something that has to do with cash receipts. Can we all agree on that? All right. So would cash receipt number be a good one here? Yeah. All right. Would that be a valid foreign key for the cash receipt table? No. Remember, the cash receipt or the foreign key is something that we use to link to another table. So it would be a primary key from a different table. So the question does change a little bit if we said a valid foreign key. All right. Moving to question number 16. Which of the following is a correct statement about primary keys? All right. Should the data value of a primary key be unique? Should it be different? Yeah, that is a critical component. That's actually the entity integrity rule. We talked about that. It has to be a unique identifier. Is a primary key always another table's foreign key? No, usually it can be if we're used to match those, but it's not always. In fact, some primary keys can never be used as foreign keys, as we discussed a couple times already. Primary cannot be used in other tables of foreign key. Yes, it can. In fact, it has to be in order to be a foreign key. Most tables in a database may not require primary keys. That's not true. Most tables will require a primary key, though not all. All right, question 17. Which of the following is a correct statement about foreign keys? All foreign keys cannot be blank or null. Can we have blank foreign keys? Is that a possibility? Yes, the referential integrity rule tells us that. It says that you can have a foreign key with its either another primary key value or it can be blank. Remember the example we talked about where a company has online and in-person service and a customer walks up and said, hey, I'd like to buy something from you. We don't necessarily record the transaction data for that customer, but the transaction still takes place. So you've got the customer ID as the foreign key and it's just blank for that particular transaction. That is fine. That can exist in some systems. Most foreign keys should not have any data values. Hopefully that's not a true statement. Hopefully the reason that we have a foreign key is so that they have valid data values for most of those items. A foreign key must be another table's primary key. What do you guys think about that one? That one seems like the strongest answer to me, and that is in fact the correct answer. But an attribute cannot be a foreign key used in different tables. That's not true. They can be used in different tables. All right. What is the referential integrity rule? We just talked about that. So entity integrity rule deals with primary keys. Referential integrity rule has to do with foreign keys. Okay. What is the referential integrity rule? This is not the full referential integrity rule. I think that this is a misnomer. This is part of the referential integrity rule, and that is foreign keys could be null. So foreign keys either have a value that's the same as a valid primary key from a different table, or it's a null value for the reasons we just discussed. Which of the following is a correct statement about the entity integrity rule? Okay, so remember the entity integrity rule has to do with primary keys. So the rules regarding how to use foreign keys, well, no, we just talked about it. It's a primary key. It's how to verify the type of data values in each table. No, the rule requires each record's primary keys cannot be null. Is that a correct statement? That is the entity integrity rule. It has to be differing unique values. They cannot be null. That's the entity integrity rule. And then primary key can usually take the tables. That's something that primary keys have to be used as foreign keys to link tables, so that's not an accurate statement. Moving on to 22. Which of the following is the best primary key for the cash disbursement table? Again, I'm not going to give you questions necessarily this simple in the exam, but it's a good identification to know the difference between primary key and foreign key. If we're talking about a primary key, it's something that's in the cash disbursement table, the disbursement voucher number. All right, D. All right, question 23. Which of the following could be an event in REA data models? So REA data models is just a fancy term for our UML diagrams. Remember, we got a resource on the right, okay? We've got our event in the middle, we've got our agent on the left. At least I think, sorry, all right. Resource on the left, event on the right. I'm backwards because I'm doing it for trying to do it for you guys and I'm confused. You know which sides they're on. You're clever enough to figure it out. But anyway, events in the middle. Remember, the event is the triggering item. What is the definition of an event, and which one of the B's example of event? So is cash an event? No. Which one is cash? Resource. Is sales an event? Yes, sales would be our event. Customer. It's an agent, and inventory. It's another resource. Good. All right. Which of the following could be a relationship table? So two tables link with a many-to-many relationship. So remember, we talked about this very briefly at the end of last lecture. It's really, really hard sometimes to link to certain tables because they have many-to-many relationships for both primary keys. So we can't really link them. the solution to that was to create a new table altogether that linked the primary keys according to their attributes. Okay. So the reason that we call those the relationship table is because they look at the relationship between the two primary keys and identify those relationships. Usually their characteristic of that is that it actually talks about the link table. It says that it's a specific table that's linking information. So in that case, it would be a table created that's not a native table. An example of that would be the purchase line item table that identifies each of the lines individually because of the multiple relationships that exist. Which of the following is not a valid link between tables? Okay, so let's just go through these one by one and see if there's a possible way we link tables. So could we link our sales table and our inventory table? Yes, most sales included inventory items, so we could probably link that. Yeah. Can we link purchases with cash disbursements? Yeah, if we make a purchase, we probably have a subsequent cash disbursement. We'd want to know what purchase is that cash disbursement for. So yeah, that's a good one. Can we link salespeople with customers? That's not as immediately obvious, but it's probably one we could say each customer has to have a salesperson that's assigned to them. So we probably could link the customers and salespeople. That's a little bit less obvious, but still apparent. What about vendor and customer? Do vendors have any relationship to customer? Like when we go and we buy raw materials from a vendor, do we have to assign which customers those raw materials eventually get shifted to? No, they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. So D is the obvious answer because those do not have a relationship to one another. All right, hopefully you enjoyed these problems. I think these problems were a little bit more lighthearted than our traditional fare. Do not get too used to them, okay? Do not get too used to these, okay? Cash receipt table below contains 7 attributes. Which of these could possibly be foreign keys? So what is this question asking? It's saying we've got these attributes that are going to be used as primary keys, or sorry, could be foreign keys. So primary keys from another table. So which of these could we actually say could be foreign keys in the cash receipt table? So quick note, we're going to eliminate remittance advice. Remittance advice is the primary key for the cash receipts table. So could it be a foreign key in another table? Yes, and the wording's not specific to that. If you answered remittance advice, the clarification would be, it is a primary key in this table. It would be a foreign key in a different table, okay? So what about date? What do you think? Could that be used as or is that a foreign key in this table? No, because remember, foreign key is not necessarily a unique identifier from another table. It's just the date the transaction occurred. What about the amount? No. Okay, same reason. What about customer? Is customer a foreign key? Yeah, customer is a primary key in which table? The customer table. Okay, so that would link our customer table and our cash receipt table, which would be very convenient to have. What about check number? This one's tricky. What do you think? Yes or no? I'm assuming some people said yes, but is check number assigned by the organization? No, it's assigned by the bank. Is it possible you could have duplicate check numbers for different entities? Yeah, okay. So check number, while it seems like, okay, that seems reasonable, it would not be possible to use that as a foreign key, all right? Invoice number, what do you think? Yes, invoice, as long as there's a one-to-one relationship, okay? As long as there's a one-to-one relationship, then that's going to be fine. What about cashier number? Cashier number, yeah, that would kind of this all follow the same parameters as customer number, as long as there's a 0 to 1 or 1-to-1 relationship. Good, good. Okay. Moving on to 16. So a sales invoice typically includes the date of sale, it's salesperson, customer data, and items included in the sale amount. Which foreign keys can be added to the following table to link all these data elements? Okay, so let's go ahead and go through these. So date of sale, we can't actually include that because well, it's already included here, but it wouldn't be a foreign key. Could we say salesperson? We could actually include a foreign key in here from a different table. Yeah, salesperson table, if they have a unique identifier, which presumably they would in a system, we could add that salesperson ID number. All right. What about customer number? Could we have that same thing too? Yeah. Now, interesting question. So it says items included in the sale. Could we include inventory item in here in this table? The answer is yes, but there's a caveat. What would have to be the case here? We'd have to have for each transaction, each sales transaction, be limited to one inventory item. Why could we say that we could not use it if it's more than one? Yeah, it wouldn't be, it would violate our rules. We would actually have multiple inventory items in a single value, which we can't do. So as long as the sales transaction only involves one inventory item, yes, we could use it as a foreign key. If it didn't, we'd have to probably create a sales line item table to be able to identify those relationships because we had multiple inventory items in a single sale. And then what about amount? Do sales items usually contain a single amount once you're all done? Like when you get your receipt and you see, all right, I bought cheeseburgers, bananas, and coffee, and there's a single amount at the bottom that I have to pay for this. Yes. So as long as we have the remittance advice number, what the amount would be, we could actually include that as a reference. Now, the amount itself would not be a good foreign key, but the reference of where the amount is contained, which would be the basically the cash receipt or the remittance advice, so our remittance advice document, that could be an example of a foreign key we'd use in this particular table. All right. So certainly possibilities for linking to these other tables, a lot of different options. All right, we are done for today. See you all on Friday for Excel number 2 and our first AI discussion.